What's up, 418 fam? Thanks for joining us on this episode of People You Should Know. And today we're going to be looking at Elijah Lamb's debate with Alex Connor on the Jubilee YouTube channel. It was phenomenal, and we're going to be talking with him and kind of breaking down what he did. And then we're going to talk about how do you help your friends and family who are skeptics about the Bible or about God know him and bring Jesus to them.
Okay, I disagree. I love to look at the case of the Amalekites in 1 Samuel 15.
Sure.
So 1 Samuel 15, it says, he uses that phrase, every man, woman, child, and then the lists off the animals,
Yep.
right? So
Well,
how do you reconcile
there are a few
that?
things to say. Firstly, one of the points where some of the Amalekites come up again, it's explicitly said that these are people who escaped. Right? These are people who escaped. And so it's possible that God commanded that all of Amalek was destroyed. And the word harem there means utterly destroy. That might
All human beings.
Okay, pause. You've been voted out by the majority.
Yeah,
Please
good to
return
meet
to
you.
your
That's good.
seat.
Everybody, thanks for jumping on here. And I'm with Elijah Lamb, and he is a traveling preacher as well as on staff with Theos U. And if you want to see a lot of his stuff, you can find him on social media, and we'll have him all linked up here, as well as Theos U. We do really suggest you using Theos U. It's really great to go in depth and study. And what courses do you have on there? I've seen a couple of yours, but what do you have?
I have four. So my first one is a weird one. It's called "Does God Have a Wife?" which I made in
Nice.
response to some like progressive scholars on the internet on TikTok that were spreading misinformation, and I was upset about it. So I made a course. That was my very first one, and all the Theos guys were like, "This is really weird. Why did you pick this?" I don't know. I want to make something niche enough to where nobody will want to watch it. Because I was nervous. After that, I made one called Heresies, and it's a look through historical heresies just throughout church history and responses to them in ways that we see them resurfacing today. Then I did one called How to Save Gen Z.
I think that's kind of that big thing that's real push right now is like Christianity is, colonizers and this, that, and the other. And
Right.
it is interesting that all these people who are upset about Christianity, quote unquote, it's like if it wasn't here, you'd be really upset.
Yeah. Chesterton says, like, there's this quote, I'm going to misquote him completely, but he said, like, without Christianity, there would be no Western society.
Mhm.
It's not that these two things have grown alongside one another simultaneously. It's Christianity made the West possible. Our
Yeah.
civilization would not exist without Christianity. So to be like, oh, Christianity is so bad for our society, it's like Christianity is why your society exists.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? What are we doing, man? So it's this long historical look from from the Roman Empire till today of Christianity's effect on the world.
Yeah, so guys, go check that out. Get a subscription to Theos U, and yeah, just be a part of growing. I tell people you need to be learners. Just be learners, and it's a great way to do it. I know that reading is kind of like out of vogue right now, but you can at least start watching, which I think eventually will push you to want to read, especially with things like Theos U. So. First of all, I wanted to talk to you about your experience with the Jubilee, debate. They've been putting out a lot of these 25 versus 1, and it's been kind of cool to watch. And I went and watched that one. I mean, it was kind of rough to watch. Alex O'Connor is a smart guy, you know what I mean? And I was telling my wife, I was like, he's talked to William Lane Craig, he's talked to Sean McDowell, he's talked to, a lot of these people that are apologists, and then we get, these 25 different Christians from different backgrounds, and you have the Mormon guy in there. And I was like, what's that guy doing in here? But so let me ask you this. Just overall, what was your experience like with that? How did you feel? Like positive, negative? What do you think?
It's a hard format for sure. I mean, that's the thing that stands out the most. It's difficult. The thumbnail and like the presentation gives off this idea that maybe the person in the middle is at a disadvantage. They're absolutely not. Them being surrounded is completely irrelevant. It's like one of those movies where, you see a superhero and they're surrounded by a bunch of bad guys, and the bad guys only fight them one at a time. They all take turns. It's like nobody thinks that the bad guy's at a disadvantage in that situation when it's all choreographed. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
of course not. If we all could bounce in it, yeah, maybe, but that just wasn't the case there. So you think it is, but it's like, no, you take this guy who has a profession on a frequent basis, goes toe to toe with apologists from all different avenues. I've listened to him speak to William Lane Craig, and it's brilliant. But I've also heard him speak to like Thomist priests who are going to approach things completely differently, and he's heard it all and talks about religion professionally. So then you drop into this situation where you've got, you know, maybe three, four, five Christians who like I might actually stand a chance, and then like 20 who you're like, man,
Oh
he's gonna do
yeah.
damage, right?
Yeah.
Like there's just no way. Um, and then even those few that might stand a chance, they only get a few minutes, and there's people surrounding them with flags, he and even if they might know their stuff, he's a professional debater pretty much. He's been in the debate ring a bajillion times. You know how many times
Yeah.
I've been in a formal debate? Like one time on an Instagram live stream in high school. Like this is not. So it's just like it's not just about knowing all the right things to say. It's about a million other things, and
Yeah.
that makes it inherently harder than you would think it is.
Yeah. So when you show up, do you see him beforehand, or the first time you see him is like when you go into the room?
Yeah, so they had us all sat down for a good bit, and then when he showed up, they made us all like look away because he had to like go to the bathroom. And then when he finally came out, the big reveal, like we all did look away, and then we were allowed to look and see him coming around the corner, and we all like cheered. Everybody was happy. Everybody thought it was going to be him, so it was really cool.
Oh,
It was
so
really
you didn't know
exciting.
who it was before?
No, they didn't tell us in
Oh,
advance who it was going to
snap.
be. But my very first, when I saw the application, I was like, it's Alex O'Connor. I just like, I know that it is. There's no other person that they would put on this platform. And I was right. So
Why did you get picked if you got picked? How did that work?
I had to go through like a whole interview process and sort of like prove my worth. There was a first a phone interview and then like a recorded interview.
But
And
did you
I think
pick or did they contact you first?
oh no, I'm on their like subscription list for
Oh,
videos. I've been on it for years. So I saw that one and I was like, oh my gosh, wait a minute. That's pretty
yeah.
brilliant. And so I clicked it. I was super excited. I've been waiting for an opportunity to get on there for literal years and applied as soon as it came out. Um, and then, yeah, I went through the whole process. The guy who interviewed me was the best. They're like, Jubilee's like really, really great to work with. And they were great hosts. And it was just a great process. They're lovely.
Okay, so he comes out there and now let me ask, as far as what came out, were there more questions and more things said, or was that the full
No,
thing?
it's just those four.
Okay. So why did you pick that question to jump on?
I picked that question to jump on because it was actually the last one. So they changed the order a bit. That was actually the
Hmm.
last prompt, and I hadn't been up yet. So I was just like,
Okay.
I'm going up. I have no choice. There's no way I'm not going to go up during this video. So as much as I would have enjoyed to go up during the other three, it was like just missed. I would have liked to go up for them, just the way the whole process works. I didn't get a chance to, and I was pretty bummed about that. So
Yeah.
the last one, it was like, no, I'm going. I'm not. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to talk to Alex O'Connor. There's no way I'm missing this opportunity. This is like once in a lifetime.
Oh
So what the
yeah.
heck? So if it's genocide, it's genocide. That's what we're talking about, I guess. And
Yeah.
that's what happened.
I thought it was dope that Austin was there too. I didn't realize that he was there too, and I was like, okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I
I
feel
had a
like
few buddies who were there with me,
oh, did you?
so that made the whole process a bit more fun.
I felt like the people that are on the backside of Alex are at a disadvantage to getting to the chair, like
So it
hardcore.
it looks like that, but what they actually do is when you like run to the chair, they'll do like right half you can run to the chair on this one, and they'll do like left half you can run to the chair because they are so much further away. So it's like really practical, like,
Ah.
but you know, like if they do that, that means only half of those times I have a
Yeah,
chance to go up, and they don't do that every time. There's more because they want it to be. I get it. They want to be fair,
sure.
and so it makes sense. Not everybody can sprint and then go like toe to toe and fight some huge dude off the chair. Like it's just not going to happen. So they have to
Yeah.
orchestrate it a little bit so people get an equal chance of going up.
I wonder if they ask people like, hey, how much do you weigh? Because if you can't run, no, I'm just kidding. Um,
Seriously. Yeah, they're
um,
always like, just guys like just be gentle, be careful, and then it just goes one in ear, one out in one ear, out the other.
oh
It's like,
yeah,
no, dude, I'm getting there first.
yeah. So okay, so genocide. That's the big thing. Um, I feel like this is a big question for a lot of people. And one, I would say, why do you think this is such a big question for people? Um, and I've kind of noticed too, it's mainly a question, an issue for Western people.
Yeah,
So yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
totally. I'd say it's probably the overall issue is people looking at the Old Testament and going, "Oh, there's things in there that seem controversial and that seem politically incorrect," you might say. And even maybe the conflict is more like it doesn't fit into my New Testament understanding. So it almost feels like there's a conflict between the Old and New Testament, which again, yeah, that would create if that is the truth, that creates a massive problem. And so if it looks that way to someone on the surface, then it's going to bring about a lot of confusion. So as much as I agree, like, oh yeah, it's usually a Western thing because Westerners are more prone to think like, oh, tribal violence is evil and um, slavery is really, really, really bad in every single situation and case because of all our understandings of the self and all that stuff. And I'm not actually saying that we're wrong. Um, I think it's more so rooted in a misunderstanding of the Bible and interpreting those passages correctly. Um, but yeah, I don't think the Bible needs to bow down to like Western values.
Sure.
Many of our Western values come from the Bible, so that doesn't happen a lot. That's a new feeling for us because the Bible is generally in line with the way the West thinks because we've built our thinking about the Bible. But that's evolved over time, so we've begun to view ourselves much more as individuals. So the Bible doesn't do as much of that. The Bible does take into account that we're individuals, we have senses of self, but it more often is going to speak of people to see to see human beings less as individuals and more as a conglomerate, as a people together. Well,
Hmm.
that's a totally different approach to the world. If you see the people of God as like a big group of unique individuals who all stand out and are totally different, versus the people of God, which is a big unit comprised of even smaller units like families, etc. That's a totally different way of viewing things, of viewing responsibility and evil and good and judgment and righteousness and punishment. Like that's just like totally changes things. So that's just one example of the way the Bible is confrontational to a Western worldview. In many places it agrees, but when we hit those places where it disagrees, it's kind of like, wait a minute, who is right or wrong in this situation? And yeah, I think that people have difficulty accepting the idea of the God that we believe in commanding the indiscriminate killing of babies. I'm okay to
Yeah.
wrestle through that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with asking questions about that. I think a lot of Christians were prone to responding to my response to Alex of being like, God can do whatever he's want. He's just and he's fair and he created him. I'm like, yeah, great. I agree, but I'm like, it is still hard. Like, I still do want to respect the fact that this takes a bit of wrestling. So yeah. Does that answer your question?
Oh, yeah, it does. It does. And I think you're right because it's something that, I've talked to young adults about, teens about. Um, I've read, forget the guy's name. He wrote the book Is God a Moral Monster?
Yeah,
Uh,
Paul Copen.
yeah. I've read that book and looked through it. I'm like, okay, this helps. And I realize I don't know if that's who you got your some of your responses from in terms of like the hyperbole, because I was like, I had never heard that till I read his book.
Yeah.
And then
I got that from Wes Huff actually.
okay, yeah, dude,
Before the big
before he
Rogan
blew
blow up.
up.
Yeah, started seeing his content before the Billy Carson debate even. He just like came up on my For You page and I was like, oh, this guy's cool. And I got in an argument with him in his comment section about the canon.
But
Not a
what's
real,
Huff?
not a real argument, just like a back and forth. Like he posted something and I was like, yeah, well, and this caveat, and he was like, well, not really. And then we like back and forth a little bit. And then he was like, here's a book my PhD friend wrote. I was like, oh, he wins. Oh, I lose. But yes, I got
I
the
got
whole like,
PhD friends.
yeah, right, exactly. He was like, yeah, and I talked to this friend at a conference recently on a panel about this subject. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm just gonna take the L on this one. Actually, Wes, you win. I love that stuff. I love that he's blown up. That makes me very happy.
Yeah,
Yeah, he posted about like the Steely, and so I looked into it. And I was like, oh wow, that's helpful. That's actually legit. But then I did read Is God a Moral Monster, and there are places where it was helpful. And it definitely it brought new arguments for me to mind of like, oh
yeah,
man, Paul. Wait a minute. Could you have said this actually? Like, would this be a beneficial argument? And then as I was working up my response to the Alex video, I posted like a 26-minute response video. I did a bunch of reading just on First Samuel and how to read it, how to study it, how to make sense of it in order to apply the whole hyperbole argument that I was making.
yeah. I want to know your thoughts on. A lot of people don't like to go this route because it seems weird. But what are your thoughts on the supernatural concept of it? You have like your Michael Heisers, and he's talking about these, people that are still
Right.
interbreeding, you know what I mean? And so you're dealing with a people group possibly that fully human, not fully human, kind of, you know what I mean? It's like this weird thing at the very least, are allowing to, what are your thoughts on that?
Sure. I haven't read Heiser, so I honestly haven't listened to the argument in its fullest. I get the concept that basically the Israelites are being commanded to wipe out mutants. But that's not, to be fair, in the case of the Amalekites in 1 Samuel 15, that's not why God says to attack them. He says when you were coming through to enter the promised land, they stabbed you in the back, they betrayed you. So I don't, it's like, sure, maybe you can carry that forward. There's some places where it's like, and these guys were distantly related to these guys who we said were giant. Like, sure, there's traces of that, and it might be the case. But I think in most places when God is using Israel as the sort of like sword of judgment, that's not mentioned. So I'm open to it.
Yeah,
Maybe, they were cleansing the land of mutants. Maybe that was what was happening. Or maybe not. And I don't want to force that like reading
sure.
into the text or into those war passages. Um, I I'm okay with that, but I don't know if the text lends itself to that interpretation.
Got it.
I'm also not
So,
a Bible scholar, and I haven't read Michael Heiser, so I can't really give like an accurate
yeah.
back and forth on this.
Okay, so obviously you got cut off. I felt like as I was watching it, people were cutting off people that had actually good answers,
Yeah,
and they're like, "You unanimously, everybody wants you off." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? They're the only one making any kind of headway." And then
yeah, yeah, yeah.
somebody comes up and says, "So, what's something you wanted to say that you didn't get to add in there?"
Totally. To be fair, like there were people who were doing well, and I raised my flag because they were up there for 6, 7 minutes, and I wanted to turn. I'm
Fair
like,
enough.
once you've had that amount of time to make your argument, I'm glad you're doing well. So like when even my friend Austin raised his flag, I saw him after. I was like, dude, you raised your flag so soon during mine, and it was in the corner of my eye. It was so distracting to me. And he was like, well, bro, I wanted a chance to go up there. I'm like, yeah, I totally respect that. I did the same thing. So I get it. It's a dog eat dog world in Jubilee surrounded. So I didn't take any offense to it. I think I do. I respect it 100% because I was up there for a while. And I'm like, yeah, man, if you didn't get to the thing that you wanted to say after all that time, it's like, okay. The problem is that Alex is really good at debate and can take you places and switch up on you and move the argument. And you're like, dude, I can't stay in the one place. So like, for example, like I sit down, I make my argument about the Amalekites, and then he spends 2 minutes recounting the entire story of the attack on Ai in the book of Joshua. And I'm sitting there like, oh, dude, just like, yeah, man. Yeah, bro, keep going. Just keep going. And I'm like, oh, you're eating away at my time right now. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Come on. I want to talk. So at the end there's a few things that I would love to say. The two things that I really wanted to be able to address was his claim that hyperbole in Samuel compromises the reliability of the Old Testament, which it absolutely does not.
Mm,
And I would have loved to talk about that more, but I didn't want to stay in 1 Samuel 15 since he was emphasizing Joshua so much. Um, but the other thing where I was going at the end was the prophecy that God gives to Abraham, that in a few generations he's going to bring him back when the sin of the Amorites, when their cup is filled up. And the question of whether or not God is allowed to use his to use human people and military conquest as a method of carrying out judgment against people who do really evil things. And that's what I was building up towards. Like, yeah, these people that they're attacking are not just like innocent civilians. These
right.
are tribal warriors who are doing the same thing to other tribes and who are participating semi-regularly in human, including children sacrifice and sacrifice of prisoners of war, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like these guys didn't have Mosaic limitations on what they could kill for their gods. So they were doing some wild stuff. They don't have the Israelite sexual ethic. They don't have Israelite slavery codes. Like they were doing gnarly stuff. Like, oh, you robbed a rich person, we're gonna cut your arms off. You know what I mean? It's just like what pause, and that would not be the worst of the worst of the worst of the situation. So in a early tribal ancient Near Eastern society where there is no like prison system, that's not like the Israelites can't show up and be like, okay, give us all your criminals and we're gonna throw them in jail. It's like I know that you want that. I know that you want merciful treatment of criminals, but it's just like that's not really a possibility. So your
Yeah.
option is like, okay, we're gonna conquer this land, and God's going to use us to judge you because you as a people are being evil, and you as a people are responsible for the sin because you are a unit. And there's like no way for us to treat the people who are doing evil things besides literally the death penalty.
Yeah.
So it just kind of, it's just, what else do you do? It just seems like the only and the most necessary way of carrying things out.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because I think he kept pushing the genocide concept. And I kept going, it's not genocide. Genocide is because they are X race, we're wiping you out. And it's like,
Yeah,
that's
one of the guys
not,
made that argument.
he did,
really
he
well.
did. And I was happy that he did. But I was just like, man, um, this is a sin issue. This is and the thing I kind of bring people back to is I go, Jonah is one of my favorite stories because when we look at it, Jonah runs away not because he hates the Ninevites as much as he hates them and he knows that if they repent, God will forgive them. Hey, thanks so much for watching. We're going to jump into our premium content now, and you can get that by downloading the 418 Revolution app and getting a premium account. It's only $6.99 per month, $60 a year. We love to have you be a part of the 418 family. If you want to make a statement about who you are and being a follower of Jesus, we have 418 gear, and this gear is made for teens, for young adults, for Gen Z, in order for you to walk around your school, your campus, your job, and say, hey, I'm a follower of Jesus, and you say it boldly. Go to 418gear.com and check it out.